Hello and welcome to the Gaggle What We Challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, during the past few days, suddenly the liberal media universe has exploded. Horror, shock, crisis, totalitarianism, fascism, Hitler is here, motifs are running rampant, all because ABC has taken off the air Jimmy Kimmel, a remarkably unfunny late night comic.
Remarkably untalented.
Very
Yeah.
untalented, and I have to say I'm even less familiar with his work than I am with Stephen Colbert. And we had a meltdown very recently when CBS announced that they weren't going to renew Colbert's contract, and so basically it's going to come to an end sometime next year. Which again, my God, censorship, Trump, fascism, and go on. So we're supposed to panic when giant corporations take off the air their multimillionaire, uh, you know, comedic talent who will have somewhere to go after this is over. I mean, it's not like this is the end. They're not being marched off to the gulag. They're going to have something else. They won't have
Oh,
as nice a gig as they had before, but they will have a lucrative gig.
well, I'm sure the palatial property in the Hamptons has already been paid off, George. So
Right.
I'm
Exactly. So what happened in the case of Kimmel, who kind of strangely kind of emerged over the past few years as another one of those anti-Trump comedians, where before he had been a kind of a fairly crude, vulgar, you know, disgusting kind of comic. Wasn't particularly
a
political, but now
blackface.
exactly the blackface. That's right. But anyway, he on Monday night he went on the air and suggested that the killer of Charlie Kirk had been a Trump MAGA supporter. He was basically a member of the MAGA gang. So let's just see what
Well,
he did.
I understood it is that it's one of their own. I mean, yeah, I mean, he didn't even put a name on
Well,
it.
he said exactly it's one of their own. That's right. So let's look at what he said. Um, yeah, here we are. Um, let's try this.
Is it possible you can move it up? Because I think that's where your play button is.
Let me see. Nope, can't move it up. It's it. Let's try if I can move it down a little bit.
Well, there you go. You're close.
Yeah, but all right, let's try. All right.
The news over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger pointing, there was grieving on Friday. The White House.
All right. So this is the point. He said is first of all, I think it's ridiculous to refer to him as a kid. He's 22. Legally, he's an adult. He's facing the death penalty. So even using this ridiculous expression "kid" is inappropriate. But he's saying anything other than their own. Why? He's saying that he's a member of the MAGA gang. Now, that's his family. I mean, you could say his parents were apparently, we don't know for sure, but apparently they were supporters of Trump. That doesn't make him one of their own. It doesn't make him some MAGA figure. Certainly, from the little that we have learned, so these text messages that they've published, there's no indication there that he somehow identified with MAGA. Um, so what he's doing here, and I mean, he was clearly suggesting that the responsibility for the killing of Charlie Kirk was within
Well,
MAGA.
I mean, this did
And
happen.
yeah, okay, yeah, go on.
This did happen in the state of Utah, correct?
It happened in the state of Utah, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, everyone. I'll give prize money if you can find a Democrat.
Right,
Okay.
yeah, right.
I mean,
That's right, yeah.
but, you know, it is a conservative state. Is it a MAGA state? Well, that's debatable. Is it on the red side of the ledger? Yeah, it's a lot of Mormons there,
But it's
folks. Okay.
but of course
I
Utah.
mean, what I'm just saying is that there's nothing really sophisticated about
No,
Utah
no,
politics. So,
right.
I mean, you're trying to like thread a needle here. Okay, everyone is a Republican. It's the
Well,
most
it
reliable
is.
public
Well,
state.
that's true, and it isn't. I mean, Utah, like many states, has the demographics has changed with people moving from California. So once you got people from California move elsewhere, that does tend to change
But
the,
Jordan, what I'm just saying is
the
trying to make a distinction in a largely conservative state like
right.
that,
No, that's right.
implying he was MAGA. Well, that's a false assumption, particularly since all of the drips and drabs of so-called evidence that we've gotten since the assassination is that he was what is they call it? He was um, uh, um, what's it radicalized
Yeah,
by
that's
the
that.
left.
That's
Okay.
what that's what we learned. And his comment, the one comment that we have about what he said about Charlie Kirk, he said a hater. He was a hater, which sounds like kind of leftish jargon to refer to Charlie Kirk as a hater. But what he's doing here, um, Jimmy Kimmel is, I think, is pointing the finger at Trump supporters, suggesting that they were responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk, and that the Trump supporters were pointing fingers at others in order to take away responsibility, their own responsibility. That's what he's saying. So
Yeah,
they're
but I mean,
blaming others in order to draw attention away from themselves.
yeah, but this is Jimmy Kimmel, everyone, and I have to say, in all honesty, I never watched his program. Obviously, I've seen clips of people criticizing him. That is my awareness of this person. But he got just about every single major theme wrong in the last 10 years. Okay. About Donald Trump in 2016, about the greatness of the Democratic Party, the greatness of Hillary Clinton. He got COVID wrong. He was a Russiagator. And so now he's saying that the assassin of Charlie Kirk is one of them. I mean, take your pick, everyone. That's why I didn't watch this guy.
No, no,
He
no.
was supremely unfunny,
Right, that's right.
okay? And he
Right,
got everything wrong. He got it wrong again.
right.
Should he have been fired for that comment?
Yes, I think so.
All right. Okay.
But I mean, the
I mean,
reason and the reason I
then you have to explain the hypocrisy of, you know,
well,
that these are not this is just what the Democrats did under Biden. Now they're in power and they get to do it. I just think,
that's a very no. I think this is a very different issue.
oh, okay, well, I'm all ears.
First of
Okay.
all, he's on the broadcast network. They basically are using the public airways. The public airwaves are a public good. They are issued licenses by the government as part of the electromagnetic spectrum. You essentially are a borrower. You borrow this narrow range in the electromagnetic spectrum. When you have that, when they give you that, that comes with a certain public responsibility. I mean,
Well,
it's like
so now that responsibility is in play because of the assassination of Charlie Kirk,
no,
because
no, no, because what he
not
was
because of Russiagate,
no,
not
no.
because of COVID. Okay, only in this case it
Well, it's
applies.
no, no. I mean,
That's what it
no,
sounds like.
no. Well, I think in this case it was a little bit strong, more than that. Somebody has just been assassinated. He's whipping up
That's his job,
hatred.
is to whip it up. That's all they
That's
do.
not. But why should anyone then say, "Oh, well, you have an absolute right to do this," and
Well,
therefore
then they
keep
should have
doing
been
this?
taken off the air 10 years ago for everything they have done.
I'm not saying you shouldn't have been, but I'm saying that in this case,
Well, then you
you're
have to
AB.
be
No,
consistent.
in this case, if
Got
you're
to be
ABC,
consistent.
because somebody has just been murdered. That's why somebody's been
A lot
murdered.
of people died during
You're whipping up
COVID, too.
violence. You're whipping up violence against a certain group of people in the shadow just a few days after somebody was murdered. That's
This,
a fireable offense.
this sounds like special pleading
No,
to
it's
me.
not. It's a fireable offense. You don't have a job for life anywhere. There's no job for life. You have a great job. You're a talk show host. You're a news anchor, whatever. And if you violate the principles according to which you have that job,
What is the
it's fireable.
principle
It's
here?
fireable. How can you argue
What
that
is
it's
the
fireable?
principle here?
The principle here is somebody has been murdered. He is pointing fingers at those who are not responsible, whipping up hatred against those who were not responsible, and that could
As
lead
if
to
he was
further
doing
violence.
anything, as if he wasn't doing
All
anything
right,
different,
why is it wrong to fire him? What's wrong with firing?
as if it was any different from his monologue the day
It's
before.
different because we're talking about murder here.
I'm
It's
sorry.
murder. We're talking about
I
violence.
don't get it. Sorry, George.
Well,
Okay.
I just explained because we're talking about violence in the
Yeah,
when somebody has
supporting
just been
American
murdered.
wars abroad is violence. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, but that's a different issue. We're not talking about,
It's
whipping up of a
not.
war. Of course, it's a different issue.
You
Somebody
can't.
has just been assassinated. The young man has just been assassinated.
Do I care that Jimmy Kimmel was fired? I could care
That's
less.
not the issue. That's not
Well,
the
that
issue.
is the issue
No,
for
no,
me.
the issue is not whether you care or don't care. I don't care about Jimmy Kimmel. The issue is Um, does he have a job for life? Was ABC out of line in firing
That's
him?
immaterial to me, and I think it's immaterial.
Well,
And
that's
it's
what that's
immaterial
what
to your
everybody that's
argument.
what
It
the
has
reason.
nothing to
No,
do with your argument.
my argument is that ABC was within its rights to fire him.
Yeah, they can fire him because they
Good.
don't like his
That,
color of his
but
hair. Oh,
this is what everybody is talking about. The fact is, this is why this hysteria, this meltdown going on day after day on CNN and everywhere else. Obama has weighed in saying that some great outrage has been perpetrated. So this is some monstrous violation of the First Amendment. This
I
is
don't
nothing
think it
of the
is.
sort.
Okay, I'm not going to get on that bandwagon. Sorry.
But that's why that's what I'm saying, that this hysteria on the part of CNN and everyone else, New York Times, they just come running day after day, stories about this horror, the violation of the First Amendment, free speech, and whatever. But the reality is that in this case, ABC said that we don't want him. Boom, he's gone. And I think that this is entirely reasonable. I mean, so therefore,
Yeah, I mean that's the business of ABC News.
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
that's
But what we're talking about is the overwrought hysterical reaction to this.
yeah. Well, I
And
mean, he said on his own program that I'm going to paraphrase here that those who do not get vaccinated and they get COVID, they should not be allowed to go to hospitals and they can snivel themselves to
okay,
death.
all
He
right.
said that.
He
Okay,
said that. Okay, so he wasn't fired then. But
it
that
wasn't fired then.
but just because he wasn't fired then doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with firing him
But
now.
I'm just saying they didn't fire him then, but he fired
Okay,
him.
so what?
But that's the difference.
But what? So what? That just
What
because they
I'm
didn't
just
do it.
saying, it's just political arbitrary. The
So
ABC
what? It's
ABC News
they
or
are
okay,
entitled to.
let's get some facts into this.
No. They're
ABC
entitled to make
News
their own.
is
No, they're entitled.
involved in a huge merger, and because
You don't know that. You don't know that that's what.
yes, we do.
We don't. You
Okay,
don't know that that had any. No, you don't know
after
that
this,
that had any
Google
role
it.
at all in the firing.
ABC News
That
merger.
had nothing to. You have no idea that this had anything to do with the firing. That's just something that was. Oh, that's because of the merger. The decision to fire Jimmy Kimmel came as a result of the local affiliates saying we're not going to run Jimmy Kimmel anymore. It's the local affiliates. It had nothing to do with the merger. It was a local affiliate said we're not running him anymore, and ABC responded to that.
Don't you think we have already invested too much time into this?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think that if people could have played this game of somehow posturing as champions of free speech, then then absolutely look. And this is why I wanted to highlight that Kimmel himself was giddy with excitement when Tucker Carlson was fired. And
Yep.
incidentally, when Tucker Carlson was fired, nobody said, "Oh, well, this is a First Amendment issue." There was a lot of rejoicing. And of
Yeah.
course, News Corp, Rupert Murdoch, was also entirely within his rights to decide that he didn't want to run Tucker Carlson anymore. It's not a job for life.
Absolutely.
And he said,
Absolutely.
boom, you're gone. So
Absolutely.
absolutely in this case, boom, you're gone. We just don't like what you said now. Now, the fact that he may have said worse things in the past, it's neither here nor there. In this case, they said, this to us is beyond the pale. Therefore, we're entitled absolutely to
Okay, well,
fire
I
him.
mean,
And this has nothing to do with the First Amendment or an attack
see,
on free
that's
speech.
okay. Then we're agreeing.
Okay.
Okay, that's not to bring it up. What I'm just saying, just like you said, was it AOC? What did she say? Something like, it was about time to get rid of him, and there should be censorship. Many were saying Fox News should lose its license and all of that. And then, oh wow, Jimmy Kimmel comes around, and everyone starts crying. Okay, that's why I think it's all bullshit, George. It's all nonsense to me.
Right. Right.
And
It
it's
is.
all posturing. And you know what? Jimmy Kimmel didn't even say what they claimed that he said.
Well, all right. The way they're presenting it is that he's been fired because he's critical of Trump. He's been
Oh
fired because
wow!
he's critical of Trump.
Who noticed that? Who
Well,
noticed
but
that?
that's not the reason
He
he was
built his
fired.
entire career
But
with
that's not
Trump
the reason.
around and
Exactly.
being
That's not
against
the
Trump.
reason, and that's not the reason he was fired. I think that if you're asking, well, why was he fired? I think in this case, then what he said was something is beyond the pale because emotions are very overwrought at this moment. Within a few days of this assassination, and so at that very moment, yeah, you lose your job. Now, should he have lost his job earlier? Probably, but he didn't. So in this case, I say, okay, I think he clearly had violated the norms that ABC expected. He's gone. It's not a job for life.
Norms, norms.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any norms on broadcast television for 2 decades now. I mean, I can't be bestirred all this. I'm bestirred by people that when the shoe is on the other foot, they're talking about freedom of speech and all of
Right.
that.
But in
It's
that,
just
but that's right.
just obnoxious. It
But
just
right,
it's
right. But that's the thing. I mean, in the case of the firing of others, they committed sins far less egregious than Jimmy Kimmel. In the case of Tucker Carlson, he didn't do anything. I mean, Tucker Carlson, it was entirely political censorship, but Murdoch can put on air whomever he wants. It's his prerogative. It's his cable news show. He puts on Tucker Carlson or he takes off Tucker Carlson. No, but in this case,
and
because
you and I have never questioned that.
no, we've
Never
never questioned it.
questioned.
But it's a little different. Cable news is different from the networks because the networks do depend on the FCC. The FCC does grant them a license, and in return for the license, they have to follow certain standards. You can say the standards are pretty loose, but they are supposed to be.
Okay,
They are supposed to be. So it is different. In his case, it is different
okay. I mean,
from all the other cases.
okay, that may be, and for me, it may be going a little bit into the weeds. I'll just take it on board here. But norms and standards, oh my
Well,
goodness.
you could,
Okay.
that's fine.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, right,
I
right,
wouldn't even know a norm and a standard
right.
that
But
it
that's
hit me
but
in the face.
yes, no, that's true enough. However, a company that fires you can absolutely say you violated our norms. You can say,
Or
well, what about these norms? And when
we
others are
don't like
violating
your
of it, but
coffee mug. We don't
but
like your tie. They can
okay,
do whatever they want.
exactly. And in this case, I think it was entirely justifiable. I mean, this wasn't about his tie. It wasn't about his coffee mug. It was something that was driven by malevolence. It was driven by hatred. It was driven by malevolence. It was
Again, we're going
done
in
with a
circles.
view
I
to.
find their entire narratives to be that way on just about
Okay,
everything.
okay. I think maybe so, but in this case, I think it's in given that it's just really a few days after this horrific
I
assassination, like you
mean,
say,
for
that's just a little
me,
bit too much.
for me, this was just part and parcel of pushing a narrative of punching down. He what he said, and it's very basically vacuous. But you and I have already gleaned from what he said is that the facts that I think most people would agree with on the assassination is just what he said is completely at odds of what most of
But
us
it's at
know at
odds,
this
but it was
point.
driven, but it was malevolently intended. I mean, yes, it's wrong, but malevolently intended. It's not just that it
Okay,
was
I guess benevolence is
somebody can be
just
factually wrong. This is more than just being factually wrong. It
yeah,
was
yeah. I mean,
the intent was
but
malevolent.
you can for me, and you won't do it probably, and that's okay. But I would apply the same kind of a standard to promoting the war in Ukraine or promoting Russiagate, as Trump is a Putin stooge. I mean, you and I agreed probably way before most people in this space is that
Right,
this is going to bleed into war, and it
right,
did.
right,
Okay.
right, right, right.
Okay. So, I mean, I take your point. I take it on board. I see it as part and parcel as basically the same
It
phenomenon.
is part and parcel.
And what you're doing is highlighting one, which is okay.
Right. Well, it is part and parcel, and but if you started going to talk about Russiagate and so on, and I'd have been quite happy if they'd been fired much earlier. I remember when Stephen Colbert was, again, he's dependent on the FCC. They get a license to, to use the public airwaves, and he suggested that, a very crude sexual reference to what Trump was doing to Putin. I mean, just said it right there on
I
air.
remember.
I think,
I
I think
wish you hadn't mentioned it. I had almost completely forgotten about it. Now you brought it back into my more functioning memory, if we put it that way.
right,
Thank
right.
you.
I think that was a fireable offense. I mean, he didn't get fired.
Okay, but George,
But
but I think
but in this case, it's a little bit worse because emotions are so raw over the murder of Charlie Kirk.
what I think is kind of interesting in all of this is that, when we look at the networks and then we look at cable, their universe is shrinking very, very quickly. Okay. And that's why when I think it was Zero Hedge where I think I was going home in a taxi and, Jimmy Kimmel. Okay. And I just thought, we're focusing a lot of our attention on a shrinking media environment. Okay. Do you think anyone that I went to ABC News or NBC News or CBS to find out what's going on with Jimmy Kimmel? Of course I didn't. What
No,
I did was what's Glenn Greenwald got to say about this.
right,
Okay.
right. Well, that's right. However, we're talking about it because the media are talking about it, and and basically, this is the New York Times,
Well, we have
Washington
to.
Post, Wall Street Journal. They're all giving over
Okay, we're not going to be
because of
Matt
space.
Taibbi and ignore a big story. Okay.
Exactly. Well, no, exactly, exactly. But I mean, just a reminder of here is uh, Kimmel's response to the firing of Tucker Carlson.
Flew the flags at half staff, which got some criticism.
Part ways. Tucker's last show was this past Friday.
That's right. Fox News has severed bow ties with Tucker Carlson. After all these years, they are parting ways, which means he was fired. I mean, that's really what parting ways means. He was said to be stunned by the move. He reportedly was in the middle of renegotiating his contract. Someone released a photograph of Tucker's face the moment he found out he was being fired, and you can see he was surprised, to say the least. Tucker couldn't be reached for comment. He's already on a plane to Moscow.
Now, this is really funny, isn't it, George?
Hilarious.
Wait, what the hell is this?
Yes.
This is supposed to be a stand-up routine, right?
Well, that's what's so interesting. I mean, these are supposed to be comedians, and then you always ask, what's the comedy? Where's the humor? Where's the joke? I mean, he's gloating, gleeful that another talk show host has got fired. Now, basically, it's never good when you're in one line of business and you're gloating that somebody else got fired in the same line of business
Absolutely.
because there but for the grace
It's
of God.
it's kind of a karma thing, everyone.
Exactly. And there it is, and that's exactly what happened. And here is Colbert's response to Tucker
If
Carlson's
if
firing.
you have to, George. If you,
Oh, that word.
Oh, hold on, no,
Wow.
oh, no, let me go back. Go back a little bit.
Welcome to the Late Show. I'm your host, Stephen Colbert, and we have been off the air for a week. You know who else has? Tucker Carlson. The difference is I'm allowed back on.
oh God.
Here's what happened. Last Monday, Fox News fired Tucker Carlson. I can't believe. Wow.
Where are the jokes, George?
Finally get to say that on TV. I've been holding this in for a week. I feel like I just had the best pee of my entire life.
Oh wow. There we go.
Like him or not, and for the record, don't. Carlson was the most watched cable news host, so why fire him? Fox did not give a reason. In fact, Tucker Carlson's exit remains a mystery. Yes, a mystery. You can read all about it in Nancy Drew in the case of Why Didn't This Happen Years Ago?
All right, so that's
Wow, that's a real knee slapper. That's a knee
exactly
slapper.
knee slapper. Now, what's kind of remarkable about the hysteria, because a lot of people have been weighing in, that including Barack Obama,
Oh,
is
of course, it was all about Barack
it
Obama.
was
I'm sure of that. Yeah.
exactly is that it's really just a few years ago during the heyday of the deplatforming that the mainstream media, the same liberal mainstream media that are having a meltdown over Kimmel today, that same liberal mainstream media were rejoicing and celebrating over the innumerable people who are getting deplatformed. If you go back to the 2021, 2022 era, boom, people were getting thrown off Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, gone. Yeah, exactly. Gone. I mean, things only changed once Elon Musk took over Twitter. And at that moment, really, you could be kicked off. The former President Trump, was kicked off Twitter and Facebook. While he was still president, he still had a few days left in office. He was kicked off, and of course, Trump's supporters were all booted off. All the people like Steve Bannon and Roger Stone, and then of course you had all the COVID deniers.
And the first one was Alex Jones. Okay.
Exactly. Now Alex Jones that was even earlier. Alex Jones was in 2018.
Because he was the trial balloon,
The trial balloon,
everyone.
exactly.
Because who is going to cry over
That's right.
that? I mean,
That's right.
there's a lot of conservative people who say, well, Alex Jones, I mean, he's got, he's watchable, but that's
Right.
what they got. They got the butt,
That's it.
okay?
That's it. That's it.
And
Exactly.
that once they got him off, it was smooth sailing.
Exactly. That was it. That was the key. And of course, they never really provided any explanation why you getting rid of Alex Jones. You say, oh, he's a conspiracist. Okay, but he's
What do you
entitled
think Jimmy
to
Kimmel was?
exactly, exactly. But because no one wanted to defend Alex Jones, they got away with it. They said, "Well, that's it. We did it with Alex Jones." And of course, they always work on everything. It's not like, "Oh, well, you're off Twitter, but at least you're still on Facebook." No, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, you're
Oh, no
gone.
collusion there,
No,
George.
no, that's right. That's right. And then that was another thing, of course, in 2021 when they destroyed all the big, powerful internet companies colluded to destroy Parler. They didn't want Parler
And
wearing
the predicate story was the Hunter Biden laptop.
exactly, exactly, and all of this time. the mainstream media were really very happy about this. I thought this was great because this is
They
attacking
were smug,
very smart.
smug.
They were attacking disinformation. Yeah, we have to, we have to attack disinformation. You're not threatening free speech when you attack disinformation. That was the line. No, 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 no. That's not a threat to free speech. And that was how they did this. And so if you just go back to let's just I mean, there's so many examples. It's almost here was Trump. Trump, of course, was gleefully sent out this truth. The ratings challenge. Jimmy Kimmel show is canceled. Congratulations to ABC for finally having the courage to do what had to be done. Kimmel has zero talent and worse ratings than even Colbert, if that's possible. That leaves Jimmy and Seth, two total losers. On fake news, NBC. Their ratings are also horrible. Do it, NBC. The limited talent that they have is quite striking. I really don't
Well,
think.
I think it's really beneath the president of the United States to be opining on these things, George. Really.
It is beneath it.
And obviously a caveat is necessary here. The names mentioned in this Truth Social tweet posting, these were among the greatest nemesis of Donald Trump. So I get that, but he is president of the United States, and I bristled when I read this. Okay.
Well, I didn't because
It's true. Everything there's no lies detected, but you know
look,
what I
Trump is Trump. Trump has always been Trump.
Okay, that's
He's always been preoccupied with popular culture. I mean that's just it. I mean, he's not, he's not someone like Nixon who couldn't care less, didn't really know anything about popular culture. He's Trump. He's lived among this popular culture all
True.
his life. So, like he has these fights with Robert De Niro. And you think, you're the president. What do you care what
Yeah,
Robert
I mean,
De Niro
Trump
says?
may go down in history as the billionaire pleb.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, but even when you watched him over the during his royal visit, or during his state visit, notice that he put his arm around King Charles.
Twice.
Yeah, you don't do that. You never touch the
Okay,
royal.
see, this is why this man screws with my mind, okay? Because I find this less than acceptable. But when he's backslapping King Charles, I'm just like, yeah, I like it. I like it. Yeah, how do I explain that? I can't. I'm sorry. I'm going to be completely transparent with everyone here. One would say, well, if you don't like this tweet here, you shouldn't like it. I can't explain it, okay? Okay. But number one, because this whole attitude towards power, okay? I mean, both men piss the same way. Sorry for being crude, okay? But that's kind of the way I look at it.
Right. Um, well, the odd aspect of it is, of course, is that he, on the one hand, is very quite obsequious towards the royal family. Plays up his English connection with his mother having been born in Scotland, so he plays that up. But at the same time, he's not someone who is uh, obsequious towards pomp and circumstance. He's the
Yeah.
sort of person you sit down at the banquet table. He probably uses the wrong fork. Just that's it. He'll use the salad fork, to eat his prawn cocktail or whatever. But
When
he
he
doesn't
licked
care about this kind of decorum.
it's not impossible he would lick his vanilla ice cream bowl. Okay.
Exactly.
Particularly if it's good. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Um, anyway, so but here's the sort of brief list just of people who have been fired and deplatformed. And this is a very, very, very limited list. You remember Roseanne Barr? It was a very successful show. She got kicked out of ABC because Obama really didn't like. She made some kind of a nasty crack about Valerie Jarrett. I can't remember what it was she said, but she really didn't like Valerie
He
Jarrett.
referenced her to a monkey.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, okay. Okay.
But mistakenly, she was using, it wasn't the person, there was a behavior that she was talking about,
Mhm.
not her appearance. Roseanne Barr, for me, is one of the great mysteries of entertainment because she is genuinely a very funny person. But
Hmm.
in interviews, she's batshit
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, a little bit, but talented. I mean, she's had
Very
two successful.
amazingly.
That's not
I
these
mean,
are
for someone
successful
of
comedy shows.
her of her appearance, I mean, she's not, what we would call like a model or beautiful,
Mm,
but she has an amazing charm about her that is so seductive,
right,
and her comedic timing unparalleled.
right, right.
Okay, but I've seen many interviews with her. She's just loopy. Okay.
Yes, yes, she is a bit. Yeah, yeah. Um, Gina Carano, I remember that. She was also kicked off for social media posts that didn't fit the left's politics, dropped by her agency too. Megyn Kelly fired by NBC in 2018. Her morning show canceled after comments about Halloween costumes. All she said was that when she was growing up, it wasn't such a big deal to do the blackface for Halloween.
I
So that's all.
remember.
She didn't say I did the blackface or it's okay to do the blackface. She just said when I was growing up, it wasn't such a big deal to do the
When
blackface.
I was growing up in the suburb of Denver, Colorado, it was not a big deal.
Right, right. And they fired her for that. So that so she didn't do anything. I mean, she didn't say I did it or I think people should do it. That was the most
Yeah, but she
ridiculous.
didn't get fired for saying that Jesus was white.
Yes, yes. Then Dave Chappelle, he was thinking about the transphobia thing. Joe
Okay,
Rogan,
just on this one here. Okay, maybe we can debate Joe Rogan, but Dave Chappelle, one of the great masters of comedy of all time. I mean, I'm in stitches with watching him. Okay, then we have Tucker Carlson, the most successful talk
right,
show host in
right,
American broadcast history,
right.
and these are people that were canceled.
Yeah,
Okay?
exactly, exactly. Um,
Genuinely
yes,
talented.
yes. And then we have Paolo, as we talked about, the J.K. Rowling blacklisted
The
from that.
greatest bestseller in history.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, Mike Lindell booted. He couldn't post his ads anyway. That was his source of income. He would with his My Pillow. He'd be on Fox News, kicked off, and everything. So now I think Mike Lindell only sells his product via Steve Bannon's show. So I think that's really his
Did
only.
Fox drop him?
Yep, yeah.
Wow.
Um, and then Alex Jones, of course, as we talked about. And then this person, Drew Holden, whom I don't know, but he managed to collect a number of these examples from the recent past. I'm just giving. So it's not like I found a lot of material. I mean, I drew heavily on Drew Holden, and here he has CNN. On the left, Trump's anti-media blitz that led to Kimmel's suspension is straight from a European strongman's playbook. And we know who that European strongman is. That's Viktor Orban. So this is Brian Stelter. I thought Brian Stelter was gone, but apparently he's
No,
back.
they brought him back as a
Yeah,
media guru.
that's right. And
But
then
I don't know if he's on air. I think he's
he's
just
on
on.
air. He is on air. I've seen him. Yeah.
Oh God.
And then here's CNN. How health officials and social media are teaming up to fight the current coronavirus infodemic. Infodemic. So that's from 2020. Infodemic. And again, Brian Stelter. This just in from Facebook from April through June, we removed over 7 million pieces of harmful COVID-19 misinformation from Facebook and Instagram. For example, posts about fake preventative measures, fact check labels were placed on another 98 million pieces of COVID misinfo. And then here is Stelter today. Um, Brian Stelter on CNN going after Fox News as cable carriers reducing this is again reducing a liar's reach is not the same as censoring freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is different than freedom of reach.
I
That's it.
remember what he said. I
Yeah, yeah,
remember.
yeah, 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 yeah. And then PBS Kimmel suspension. This is an AP story. They're quoting an AP story. Kimmel suspension highlights Trump's growing power over U.S. media landscape. And then same AP, Biden killing people remark was a call for big tech to act. So there's that's fine when you get big tech to start deplatforming and throwing people off and throwing out uh, removing posts and so on. And then Kimmel suspension set off furious debate over free speech. Also, Politico. Biden's campaign set to counterpunch on misinformation. New York Times. Trump administration wields its full toolbox to bring media to heel. And then they're killing people. Biden denounces social media for virus disinformation. Uh,
So I guess it depends who's in power.
exactly, exactly. I think their principle here is that when the right, conservatives, whatever, are getting kicked off the
Yeah, but I
social
mean,
media,
George.
that's something to rejoice over.
Yeah, but even though this person put a lot of work in putting this together, ABC News is a company. Okay,
Hmm.
it's not the government. Okay,
Right,
the government was um, uh, damaging freedom of speech. ABC News,
right.
that's their big effing problem. Okay, sorry.
Absolutely. That I think that's the point. That with these corporations, and it's the same thing as with the Tucker Carlson,
Yeah.
which is it's their decision. They give you a job of a lifetime. Basically, you've got a huge salary. You just get to goof off for an hour. Okay, that's very nice, but it's not a job for life. They put you on and they take you off. I mean, they decide, when they can take you off. So, but there's this expectation that this is somehow a job for life, and it's outrageous that a private corporation decides we don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, this is different than covertly funding the Hamilton 68
Yeah,
project.
that's
It
right.
got rid of me off of Twitter.
You're right. No,
That's
exactly.
different than ABC News.
I absolutely agree. And what the Biden administration was doing, and this was actually happening even within in the latter days of the Trump administration. Essentially, they were colluding with the social media. They were having these regular meetings with the social media bosses and instructing them whom to remove. I mean, they removed Bobby Kennedy Jr. And all the people associated with Bobby Kennedy Jr.
And then the Ukrainian government wanted social media companies to take action against Aaron Mate.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. And then they did apply pressure on the issue of the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, they had directly applied pressure on the social media company not to run the Hunter stories about the Hunter Biden laptop, so, because it's Russian
And
disinformation.
Jimmy Kimmel, as far as I can tell, I assume he has an account on Twitter. He can mouth off all he wants.
Exactly.
Okay, mouth off all you want. He's got his freedom of speech.
Yes,
Okay, and if he wants to say MAGA killed Charlie Kirk, that's his right.
that's exactly
That's his business.
exactly
And
that.
I
Yes.
am not going to say, oh, you should take that down. No
No,
way.
absolutely, absolutely.
Because you know what? It's not against the law to be stupid.
Exactly, and you're absolutely right, and that's the difference between what was done to Kimmel and what was done to Colbert. Okay, they lose this prime gig, but they're gonna have some other gig. They can have a show on Netflix, they can have a show on HBO, or or whatever. But the people who are removed from Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they're gone. Once you lose your place and you don't have a big name, you cease to exist. Nobody knows
Who is that
anything
guy?
about you.
Very strange name. Chowder. I mean, I think his last name was Chowder, but he played like Chowderhead or something like that. And this was just really obnoxious frat brat humor,
Yeah.
okay? And he had a huge following. And they got rid of him. Who was the guy that went around with a microphone? Charlie Kirk didn't invent it, ask me any question. He didn't invent it. Other people have done it. There was another guy. He was huge on YouTube. Boom,
Right.
gone,
Yeah.
okay?
Exactly. And you're
And
gone. And that's it. And
it
once you're
was in
gone,
speed.
if you're not a famous person, no one knows you exist because you don't have a reach anymore. That's it. That you're not on Facebook, you're not on Twitter, you're
You
not.
can't even
Yeah.
tell them where, okay, they took me off YouTube, but I'm over. They don't even give the chance to tell you where I am.
No, 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 they don't. They don't. And they remove all of your past postings. So everything, or if you had a lot of videos up on YouTube, they're gone. No one can see them. Um,
RT.
exactly. Boom. Exactly. Um, and then here's of course Hakeem Jeffries indignant about about
But he wasn't
Kim.
indignant about Charlie, about Tucker Carlson.
No, on the contrary, they were actually urging Fox News to
Right.
take him off the air. There's Chuck Schumer. And here is America is meant to be a bastion of free speech. Everybody across the political spectrum should be speaking out to stop what's happening to Jimmy Kimmel. And then here he is, Rupert Murdoch and Fox News. No, it's a lie. They must order Tucker Carlson to stop. Imagine a politician, a senior figure. He was majority leader, telling a private company, you must do this. You must order Tucker Carlson to stop. And that was okay. Oh no, that's fine. But,
It was
incidentally,
like
that was
Senator,
actually
that was like Senator Blumenthal going to, it was right after the 2016 election, and he wanted names, and he
yeah,
went
that's
to
right.
Silicon. I want names. I
Names,
want
that's right.
names.
Names, that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And little did we know that during that time, it was only reported later that there was all this collusion going on to censor people anyway.
Right.
Okay, so
That's
I mean, while they were censoring people, they guess they missed RussiaGate. Okay, I mean, it's amazing.
yes. This is incidentally this date, this is March the 7th, 2023. That's soon, that's not long before Tucker Carlson was taken off the air. I think he was taken off the air sometime, was it April 2023?
Yep,
So
yep, 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 yep.
yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I would go to work and almost every single it was weeks, maybe like 6 or 8 weeks going to work, and I said, "How did he get that on air last night?" Because my entire team would watch Tucker Carlson because I told
Right,
them to, and we would all talk about it. And they kept saying, "Is he going to last?" I said, I can't believe saying he's getting away with what he's saying now."
right,
And then
right.
it happened, and of course, no one was surprised. No, we weren't
No,
surprised,
no, no. Um,
and Tucker wasn't, I don't think either.
I don't think so. But what's I think honorable about Tucker, as opposed to Kimmel and Colbert, is that he never complained about it. He said,
No,
"Hey,
no.
I really like working for Fox News. They
Well,
treat
as far as
me
okay,
really well."
I think George has got it right. It was April,
I
in
think it
and
was
around
April, yeah, April
April, and he
2020.
was still going to be paid till January. So what?
Right, no, but he never said, "Oh well, it's outrageous. I should be on the air." He said, "Well, no, I mean, they gave me the job of a lifetime. You hold these positions for as long as they tolerate it, and then it doesn't last forever." But Kimmel and Colbert, they're sort of indignant. They're sort of, well, we're supposed to be there forever. And particularly in the case of Colbert, who was losing a lot of money for CBS. I mean, you
Yeah,
think, do you really think that a private corporation is going to indefinitely go on losing money on this scale? It's not going to
I
go.
wonder if in the case of Colbert, because he's still on the air, right?
Colbert is still, yeah, until next year, yeah.
Well, I hope that they're aware of what Conan O'Brien did, because he was given a notice about a year or some time before, and what he did was he just wasted tons and tons of money just to put it in their face,
Right.
okay? And he was very good at what I mean, he was of all of them. He was my favorite by a long shot.
I got to agree. I mean that he was he was much more
And he
talented.
wasn't political. That's
Right.
why everybody loved him.
Right. But I think it's just talent. He had a comedic talent. Colbert doesn't have any of that. I think it was just that I just don't think he ever had a talent. I think it was just I don't I'm not sure why they gave him
He was an
that spot.
actor, wasn't he?
I think it was an actor, yeah. But he you know he was he had that little slot on Jon Stewart's show.
Oh, he played he
He was doing a Bill O'Reilly. You remember he was
yeah, he played
posing as
that's
Bill
right. That's right.
O'Reilly. That was his thing. And you know, and that was a kind of a that was kind of a good joke once. But he kept doing this every night. I mean, it's the same joke. Okay, I got the gist. You don't like Bill O'Reilly, and you're taking the piss out of Bill O'Reilly. But you know that the joke wears thin pretty quickly. And on the basis of that, he got it. He you know he became the David Letterman successor at CBS.
I never liked Letterman.
Me neither. um,
And I didn't like Leno.
No, I know it's just it's sad that you know Carson got old. I mean, it's like it's you know
I you know I was watching Johnny Carson way before I was aware of politics, okay? And I liked Johnny Carson,
yeah
okay?
yeah
Everybody.
yeah. No, me too, me
Well,
too.
because I didn't need to know politics
Right,
to,
right. And I think his humor, he was an equal opportunity piss taker. I mean, he would take the piss out of both
and he
sides.
was, you know, it's I don't know how important this will be for some viewers, is that he was a Midwesterner, okay, and a kind of a very skeptical of elite culture, more man on the street. Very often, the fewer words said, the greater the meaning. I mean, he was very much a Midwesterner in his spirit and outlook, and that's why so many people could identify with him because he always made fun of Hollywood, made
Right,
fun of he made fun of yeah, I mean, have the most famous people come on, and he would he would not he wouldn't denigrate them, but he would make fun of them,
right,
and that's what that's very much of an American spirit. We're all kind of the same, you know. I
right.
mean, at least that's an ethos. Okay.
Right. No, I think so. But he was, I mean, when you look at him, he looked the very essence of the wasp. I mean, that
Oh,
the tall, handsome, you know, just boom. I mean, it's like if you want to know what does a wasp look like, you think
well,
of
and
Johnny
plus, George,
Carson.
you know, it's like, look at me, look at the gig I've got. I mean, it's like, yeah, look at this, okay? I mean, he didn't downplay his. He knew he was a household name,
Right.
okay? He
Right.
knew he was adored, okay? But he didn't rub it in. It's what you know. The only thing negative I ever heard about him is that he was a mean drunk, okay? Could be
Right.
a mean.
Right. Right. I think so. He was a mean drunk, and but he was, yeah. No, I think so. And I guess he liked some guests more than others. I mean, he you know
Oh, well, speaking just as a quick diversion here, George, I don't know if you have noticed, but I'm getting very, very irritated by it. And this is where creators, I think, are very dishonest and very disingenuous. The five artists that Paul McCartney hated most. You watch the whole video, there's not one quote from Paul McCartney. I mean, how do we know this?
right.
Okay. When people they're borrowing from everybody else and they're putting together and they're putting out their own narrative that is based, from what I can tell in many cases, based on no evidence whatsoever.
I think
And two
those things are
million
just
hits, 2 million hits.
that's right. Exactly. That's what they do. They do this clickbait stuff all the time. This clickbait stuff. This was the episode that took I don't know whatever this show off the air. So what was this
I
episode?
saw that yesterday. It
And
was
then what
what was
happened?
it?
Where's the episode?
What was like different strokes or something stupid? I saw that at work because at work I don't have when I go into YouTube, it's not my account. It's just fresh. It's just open. And they had like the one episode that broke this
Yeah. Yes.
and I remember thinking, I don't remember that. Okay.
No, it's this is very good clickbait. They know how to get the eyeballs on these shows, so they put to do these titles, and they get people to to click on. But then they fail to deliver the goods. They don't have the goods, they've got the eyeballs, and that gets them the advertising revenue. Anyway, here's again the FTC holds companies accountable for telling the truth in advertisements, but that's not the case with cable news. That's been put into stark relief as Fox News, as Tucker Carlson tries to rewrite history on the January the 6th attack on the Capitol. Again, note the date. It's very soon before his firing.
Well, he's got his 9/11 series out now.
That's right. And then here's the Bulwark. That's one of these Bill Crystal outfits. Somebody called Jonathan Lask. We need more social media bans. January 2021. Same Jonathan Lask. First they came for Jimmy Kimmel. Oh, I love this. First they came for Jimmy Kimmel, yeah, and I didn't say anything. Then they came. God. I can't. That's one of those cliches.
Well, I mean, in the context of all of this, it's really kind of interesting. I don't have a definitive answer because I'm still thinking about it. The death of Charlie Kirk is meaningful. I think everybody agrees with that. But what is its meaning?
Well, we don't know that. I agree. I mean,
I'm proposing that. What is the meaning of that? Okay, and there seems to be that this is a firestorm to determine what that means. Okay, and I don't have an answer yet. But I mean, as George and I are doing right now, observing, it's certainly important to a lot of people.
it is. I mean, look. I mean, it's a shocking event. I mean, so when it's a shocking event, people talk about it, and and emotions are very raw. But there are all sorts of things that we, as at this stage, don't know, and I mean, we have to also be on the lookout and wonder whether there's some kind of a cover up is taking place.
Well, George,
you don't know yet, but it's possible.
Everybody knows George is an author. He wrote a book about the destruction of the former Yugoslavia. It's called
Bombs for Peace.
Bombs for Peace. George, given the manifesto that Kash Patel and his friends have presented to the public, I would say, George, that you have the possibility of being a screenplay writer because you're certainly could easily do better than what they're presenting us. Okay,
right.
What the manifesto I think is such an insulting ploy because nobody writes like that, nobody talks like that.
Right.
What you do is you're writing it down, and it's like I was, say I was writing a message to you, George. George, do you remember 5 years ago when we met at McDonald's? I remember you had a vanilla shake. You decided to not take part in the fries,
Right.
but for some strange reason, you had ketchup
Right.
there. I'm writing this as I'm robbing the McDonald's.
Yes. Right.
Okay, you really? I mean, this is really extraordinary. Okay.
No, that's right.
I mean, this is when I read it, I just thought you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, right. I agree. And the best one was when he was talking. He keeps messaging his I guess call his boyfriend, and he keeps talking about the gun. Oh yeah, the gun. I got to get the gun back. I got it hidden. I got to get the gun. I don't know what Grandpa's going to say when his gun is missing, and then he says, but the gun is the only evidence they've got. Well,
and it's wrapped up in a blank.
Just a whole series of messages in which you've confessed to the crime. Oh, the gun is the only evidence that they've got.
And I've wrapped it up and I've put it in a box and put it in the forest, which was not a forest, everyone. It was a man-made landscaping project.
Right,
okay.
Right. You plan something and then you conveniently write it all out, messages. Yeah, this is the only evidence they've got against me.
Yeah, but when I'm trying to rationally understand this. If this young man in fact did this, he realizes that there's going to be a massive manhunt for him. The possibility of him being caught is very high. And he's messaging a person that he has affection for. Wouldn't you, George, be talking about, I really regret this because we're not going to have time together. We're not going to have time to explore our lives together. And I really miss you. And wouldn't you be more focused on that emotional connection instead of talking about, I hope my grandpa doesn't find out the gun is gone. That's not a mental state that I think is compatible with the situation.
No, I don't. So I don't know what. You would say, but precisely, you know that that absolutely everyone is coming after you. So your best bet at this stage is say nothing. Absolutely, which is what he's doing now. Just say nothing. I mean,
Well, and
don't
if
start sending messages or anything. Say
exactly,
nothing.
and if the gun is disassembled in your escape, wouldn't you want to have it as small pieces as possible and spread them
Right,
around?
yeah. I think the last thing you want to do is to be sending out messages like that. That
And and
makes very
and,
little
and
sense.
what anyone that has followed this, I think, irrespective of how you feel about Charlie Kirk and this whole media storm, is um, what would be the state of mind? And it seems to me that we're being um, um, fed with a spoon about how to feel about this crime, the way they're describing it. It doesn't feel right, doesn't seem right.
No, no, I think that's right. I think that's
I mean, and George, would you be messaging at all if you were in that kind of
no,
state of?
that's exactly what you wouldn't be. Now, given that he had planned this, it was well planned. He managed to escape. That wasn't that easy to do, to escape from the crime scene. Remember, Oswald didn't pull that off. So he's managed to escape. At this stage, your best bet is say nothing, issue no messages, and hope that there isn't any evidence pointing to you. But once you start messaging, you're done. So that's why it makes very little sense. I mean, none of it makes sense. But I think we are being spoon-fed a particular story, which is that, oh, it was a personal thing. He has this personal relationship, his boyfriend is transitioning and whatnot. So that's what they want us to believe, and therefore we're not looking at maybe other motives, other people, whatever. So
Well, yeah, they're
other
not
other
looking
things that
at
may be going on.
they're not looking at problems in their narrative
Right.
outside.
Yeah, they
They
want
like,
everything nicely tied up with with in a nice bow. Okay, well it was just a personal thing. That's
look, look. I want to be very fair. I am perfectly willing to accept that this young man committed this crime, but just show me evidence and don't try to make a fool of me.
right,
That's all.
right,
Okay,
right, right,
that's it.
right.
And it's like,
No,
no, this is obviously a conspiracy. No, I'm not. That's not
no,
our starting
I
point.
don't think
That's
I
not our
agree.
starting
We,
point.
we we
No.
don't know. We don't know this. All we know is the story that they're putting out, which there's a lot of questions about it. And then you really have to think about, is this all we're going to find out? Because it's quite possible we're not going to find out anything more. I mean, we may already have come to the terminus of the story because he may not,
Well, George, there's
they,
an important question here. Who's going to defend this young man?
well, they'll find somebody. They have to find somebody.
Well, that's
A
my
public
point.
defender.
That's my point. Okay.
Well,
I mean, look, George and I are just podcasters here. I
right.
mean, if we've got a problem with this, I hope that we'll have someone that will question the evidence at least.
Right. But that's in itself also quite odd. The odd aspect of it is that he still doesn't have an attorney, which is odd. I mean, his family has money. I mean, they have some money. They have money to hire a lawyer. So it's odd that they still haven't got a lawyer for him. The court says, oh, he's indigent and we'll find a public defender. But he's not really indigent. I mean, his family has money. But the lawyer, what does a lawyer do? I mean, a lawyer will say, look, I mean, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Your best bet now is to plead guilty and ask for mercy from the court, basically to avoid the death penalty. I mean, that's probably what a defense lawyers, would say. Hey, avoid the death penalty, and that's what may happen. They may work out a deal whereby he avoids the death penalty.
If he makes it that far,
Yeah, if he makes it that far. Yeah.
he could be Jack Rubied.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, there's another one, David Pacman, blah blah, Kimmel Show and so on. Yeah. And here's Obama. You were asking about Obama. I want to know about Obama. This commentary offers a clear, powerful statement of why freedom of speech is at the heart of democracy and must be defended, whether the speaker is Charlie Kirk or Jimmy Kimmel, MAGA supporters or MAGA opponents. Well,
Wow,
there's
more profound words from the former
right,
president.
but there's a little bit of a difference. I mean, in one case, somebody is shot dead. Another one is just simply he doesn't have a nice fat corporate gig, but he's going to get lots of other fat gigs. I mean, there's somewhat of a different, just simply say, oh, freedom of speech. Um, Also, Obama himself wasn't particularly famous for being a great champion of free speech during his years in office. I mean, he pursued more whistleblowers than any other administration. Um, he seized he spied on AP reporters, so they bugged the phones of the AP reporters. The Justice Department went after James Rosen, the Fox News reporter. They went after Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning. I mean, they went after uh, Julian Assange. So, you know, somehow freedom of speech and Obama don't go very well together. And of course, he's the one who kind of instigated Russiagate. And then here's Obama again. He's weighing in after years of after years of complaining about cancel culture. The current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commentators it doesn't like. So that there it is. He sort of weighs in with these cliches.
Yeah, it's Barack Obama always kind of weighs in when it's kind of safe. You
Yeah,
know how
always they say. Yeah.
yeah, he just kind of breezes in. It's like, well, this, well, that's what he does.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
He does this the whole kind of.
I'm for freedom of speech. Wow, wow. Barack Obama is for freedom of speech,
That's right.
everyone.
That's right.
That's a
Yes.
that's a headline. Wow, wow, that's amazing. There's still people like that.
I know it is kind of amazing. The funny thing was that he went around with this reputation, or he's a constitutional law professor. He wasn't a constitutional law, but I think he taught some classes in Illinois on constitutional law. But the one thing is that when he was president, he never once talked about constitutional law. I mean, it's like the one subject he never weighed in on was constitutional law. But he go, oh, well, so he's a
Yeah, well, and he signed off
expert
on
on constitutional
he had
law.
signed off on the assassination of American citizens.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's right.
that's his level of constitutional knowledge.
That's right. Yeah, it's always kind of interesting whenever he's kind of pops up in these occasions, and it's hard now to remember. I mean, I guess it was 16 years ago. The hysteria, the Barack Obama mania that gripped America and the world for a while.
In the
The
world.
world was besotted with
He
Obama.
was like the Beatles when he went to Europe before he was inaugurated,
Yeah,
remember?
yeah, absolutely, yeah. The Germans loved him, and yeah, and that's right. They just he's such a cool guy. Remember, he was the cool guy, cool,
Well,
cool.
that's all he was.
That's all he was.
That's all he was. He was
That's
just kind of cool.
He was cool, yeah. And so there, and now he sort of weighs in with these absolute platitudes, and then he gets quoted. So Barack Obama says this, ooh, and a new media report, Barack Obama has weighed in. But then, he's a cool guy. Remember when he had that 60th birthday party? I think we did a podcast on that, this was a 60th. This was at COVID.
A spoiler, everyone, we weren't invited.
We
Okay.
weren't invited. Yeah, that is a spoiler. We were waiting with bated breath for that invitation. But I think the point was why we talked about it. This was COVID. This was at the COVID era. So this was a big bash, and the only people who were invited were celebrities. So, which is again, he's supposed to be this radical, transformative figure, this cool guy, and strangely enough, the only people he invites are celebrities. And then he
Well,
had
and another obvious um, category that they were in is they were all rich.
exactly. He does like his rich people.
He likes rich. I think right after he left the presidency, he was with Branson on they were
yep, yep,
boating or something
yep,
like that.
yep, yep, yep. That's right. Exactly. Exactly. And he had to scale it back just because of COVID. I mean, it was just so outrageous
Oh
that
my God, Barack Obama had to scale it back.
I mean, it was still a big fancy party, but it wasn't quite as big a bash as he had wanted. So there you gotta,
Was Clooney there? Do you think Clooney was
yeah,
there?
Clooney was there. Yeah, yes.
Of course he was there.
Clooney, so he's a
Of course he was. These people,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know when it happened, George, because we've lived through this. Okay. Robert Redford,
But
R.I.P.
I don't know if was Redford part of
No,
Obama's.
I just it just came to my
Right,
mind. But when we were coming up, I mean, George Clooney wasn't like a wise man.
right,
He was a good actor. I mean,
right.
he entertained us. But it's in my lifetime. It was actually a rarity for people to come out for causes in political parties. It happened from time to time, but mostly it was, they just played their part in society, entertainment. And what happened is that as they, if you look at actors how they were paid in the 50s and 60s, okay, it
Right,
might be a multiple of the average
right,
American wage, but it wasn't like 100 times
right.
more. Okay. I mean, they were still people, they were people from the people. Okay. Robert Redford was. He was basically a middle class guy. Okay.
Right.
But then somehow they were made into or demanded to become the intelligentsia.
Well, I
And it
think
happened in our
that was
lifetime.
yeah. Well, that was the well. I think it was a little bit. It started really in the '60s because in the '60s they the studio system came to an end. So what that meant was that the actors became independent contractors, and therefore they could just command enormous fees. Before, you worked for a studio, and the studio basically they made you do I don't know however many 25 films a year, and you did them. I mean, you had to basically obey the rules of the studio. Once that came to an end, then of course actors became huge celebrities because they were just independent contractors. They just said, well, I don't think I'll take this part, and I'll do that. And so I think that's when they just began growing in stature. And suddenly, they were really thinking about. I mean, Redford was in a way the first of the new breed of the actor as a kind of a political, not exactly
Yeah.
a pundit, a political kind of
A
celebrity.
commentator, a commentator.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I
he
mean,
kind
we
of
wouldn't use
embraced
the
liberal causes. He was
yeah. I
associated
mean,
with liberal causes.
they didn't have the word then, but he was like among the first of the influencers.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So he was the new type of actors. It was very different from say the Jimmy Stewart and Wayne because they were still part of the studio system. So that and that had gone, and so now Redford would be weighing in on political issues, and they were always very trite. I mean, there was always something very uninteresting. The environment,
The
something.
environment, yes,
Yeah,
very often.
the big one. And so that's I still think of when you think of Redford versus Clooney, that Redford at least I think has a solid body of work. I mean, not everything he did was good, but say, okay, I can name half a dozen pretty decent Redford films. I'm hard pushed to think of half a dozen Clooney films. I mean, maybe you can
No,
do
no,
do
no.
better, but I can.
I was very careful with my word. He entertained us. Okay, entertainment isn't necessarily art. Sometimes they
Right.
cross, but
Yeah.
I think rarely. I mean, the Ocean 7, 8, 9 or whatever
Oh yeah.
he made, like that's just a money trough. Okay, that's
Exactly.
all.
Money trough. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, if you when they were making the later iterations of it, did you know that like with Brad Pitt, they would have an earpiece in his ear because he hadn't even memorized the lines, and they were just telling him the lines as he was doing it. Okay. because there was no attempt at art. Okay,
No, no.
but but like Sundance. What was it with
Butch
Butch
Cassidy.
Cassidy? It was a great film.
Right.
That's really good. I like
But
that.
I mean, I think if someone said, "Well, what Redford films?" Um, I would think our notable films. Well, obviously, The Candidate, where I think was his best film because it captured the essence, I think, of the character that Redford portrayed. The sort
And
of
it captured the zeitgeist, like the
it very
people
much
that
captured the zeitgeist, and but the good-looking, vacuous figure. I mean, he was just that, and Redford was kind of very much aware of that.
was Peter Boyle in that
Peter
film, I
Boyle
think.
was he was
Yeah,
the
he was good
campaign
too.
manager. Yeah, he was very good. He was the campaign manager. Yeah, yeah. But that was his best.
And I love The Sting. I've watched it many times. I really liked it. But and also it's one of those films where you get the be- because, as you said, Robert Redford was part of that new generation. But in The Sting, they had the greats of the previous generation,
Yeah,
and and a lot of them were very well accomplished actors and actresses, but they played bit roles. So I remember watching. Oh, I remember him, but it was this very small role. But
yeah,
it was something. It was very much a celebration of filmmaking in Hollywood in a different era.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I don't know about you, George, but I watch very few films now.
Yeah,
Very.
I agree. Me neither. Because I was thinking, because obviously, we had Gene Hackman's death a little while
Yeah.
ago, and I thought of, well, he made us some very notable films, and I remember, and I say,
Mississippi Burning. Oh God, that
yeah,
was.
and I was thinking about Redford. Well, what notable films? And I thought, okay, in terms of his acting, I think The Candidate, I think that was his best. But I think as a director, I think he made Quiz Show. Quiz Show was
That,
quite it was an impressive film. He didn't act in the film. He
very
directed it.
short too. Very
Yeah,
short.
short, but it was a like a good film, and very really quite a very poignant film. I mean, really, in many ways, it's just a
Well,
really
if you go watch Quiz Show, this shows his directorial talents because the cinematography is very good. I mean, here was a man that grew up in front of the camera. I would argue he was probably best behind the camera. Okay. Quiz Show is an excellent example. That's among the perfect films, in my
right.
opinion. Perfect
Right,
film.
right. Yeah. And but also interestingly, he didn't act in the film, even though the main character, the Van Doren character, in a way is Redford, the sort of the good-looking charmer, and
The archetypal wasp.
the
Yeah.
archetypal wasp, and then you could see these awful slimy TV producers would have seized on him. Hey, this is the guy we want
Well, I
to
mean, was
win
that
all this huge amount of money.
his film from beginning to end? I think
I
it was. I think it
yeah,
was
yeah,
totally his project. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
because obviously he could have starred in his own film.
Exactly, exactly. Now maybe he considered himself already too old to play Van Doren at that stage. But yeah, but as portrayed, the Van Doren in the film, he is a kind of a version of Robert Redford. Everything comes too easily for him. It's just everyone likes him because he's so good looking and so charming.
And he
Um,
hated that. He
yeah,
hated that.
yeah.
He really pushed back against, I'm not just another pretty face, because he was really, I mean, and so many of his peers would always say, "Oh, how handsome he was," and he didn't like that. He didn't like.
No,
He definitely was. Okay, but in a way, it kind of it was a substitute for his real talent. I mean, look at Jack Nicholson. I mean, in middle age, I mean, Jack Nicholson isn't a particularly handsome man,
no,
okay? Balding,
no.
got a gut. He's still magic,
Yeah, he
okay?
did. Yeah, but Nicholson was always definitely, even when he was young, he had that manic energy and an almost a kind of a frightening kind of energy about him. He was always a little scary. You never knew exactly what he was going to do. And even when he was, in Easy Rider, where he plays that kind of the liberal Southern lawyer, he was still a little bit scary. I mean, the figure that he played there. And so yeah,
Well, particularly in The Shining, of
well,
course.
The Shining is really scary, but he was good at that. And
Stanley Kubrick apparently gave him carte blanche, which was atypical of Stanley Kubrick because I've seen so many people talk about their relationship with Stanley Kubrick, and almost they all say very nice things. But if you talk to him long enough, the guy was a prick. Okay, he was a hard guy to work with. But
Right.
apparently, with Jack, just go, Jack, just go. It was amazing. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's right. So, um, and yeah, so that's right. And I have to say, even in that corny, the corniest of corny films, Barefoot in the Park, um, you know, they managed to pull off something that's hard to pull off because it is very corny, it's trite, it's cliched, but because it had Redford and Jane Fonda, both young and both cute, the film is watchable. You can say, okay, you kind of like it. I mean, obviously it's a piece of cotton candy, but it's not as bad as you might think it is. I mean, it's not. So it's still, even then Redford managed to pull off something, make something utterly sort of cliched and trite into a pretty decent film.
Well, it's something I have noticed. There's I think the British series, The Forsytes. Okay, now talk about cotton candy. Okay, but it's very popular, George.
Well,
People
that's right. Yeah.
like that. I mean, there's a number of a series that have come across. I've come across, and they're very much like that. They're mega popular. Okay, and for a variety of reasons, people can actually identify with the characters. It's usually about hardship. A lot of people can identify with that. Okay, it's very interesting. And you can tell the woke thing dropped like a lead balloon. I mean, they stopped making them. Okay,
Right.
the new Star Trek series is a complete affront to the last iteration, which was simply awful. The
Right.
new one is light, it's fun. You love the characters from the get-go. So it's very interesting watching these trends go on here. I'm sorry I interrupted everything by mentioning
Right.
Redford, but
Right. Right. Well, anyway,
anyway, sorry, everyone.
yeah,
Okay.
no, but I think to put a bow on it, I think we find that the awful it's just this insufferable hypocrisy when there's this ridiculous posturing with somehow when there's freedom of speech, and the people who do this, the people who talk the loudest about free speech, are the ones who care the least. They absolutely care the least about it. It's just, hey, this is neat. We,
Well, see, I mean,
let's
but this is the hypocrisy is that, speech is about the message. Okay. And this is all focused on the messenger. Jimmy Kimmel got fired. As George and I said at the very beginning, who cares? It's a business decision.
right,
Okay.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Exactly. It is a business decision. These are multi-billion corporations. They don't like losing money, or at least they don't like losing money indefinitely. And so then they make it in the case of Colbert, they said this we're losing, what is it, a 40 million a year on this show. And in the case of Kimmel, the local affiliates were basically saying we're not going to air him anymore. Well, once the local affiliates are no longer airing it, then
And what's the point?
exactly. So they make commercial decisions, but they want to make it something sinister. They're making ideological. Trump got on the phone. They wouldn't care what Trump says, but they make commercial decisions, and that's what they did
Well,
in
a
this case.
cynic would say, and I would probably too, this was a great opportunity to flush this guy.
That's right. I think that's exactly it. And I think that was it. This was a great opportunity. And so, but these corporations, the number crunchers are saying, hey, this is great. We're going to save some money.
Particularly since we said in the very beginning, was what Kimmel said, was it uncouth? Was it impolite, impolitic? Of course it was. But he didn't say what everybody said he said. That's why I think, good, this is the time. Check out, get rid of him. Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
So it wasn't about freedom of speech, everyone.
No, not at all. No.
All righty. I apologize. I dragged this on way too long by starting talking about Hollywood. And of course, I tapped into George's vast knowledge. I took advantage of him, and he took advantage of my taking advantage of him. All right,
We have
everybody.
to pay at least a brief tribute to Robert Redford. Yeah.
All right, everybody. This is the Gaggle with Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. This is Friday. We will reconvene on Sunday. I will not be present on Monday. Maybe I can twist George's arm and we could do it later in the week, but if not, for sure, the Monday following.
Exactly. And then we got to deal with this issue of Buddy and Apple because they kind of been raising a lot of noise recently, saying that somehow that this is their First Amendment rights are being violated because they're not able to to generate.
I get these bones for the dog. I put 5 on the floor, and what happens? They all fight over one of them. The other 4 are sitting right over there. Nobody wants them, but this one particular bone. They fight and fight and fight over it. And then I pick up one that isn't. How about that? No, I want that one. They're the same.
It's very interesting. It's a very interesting question. I mean, there's probably a reason. I think if you could understand.
No, if I want the bone, if you want the bone, then I want the bone. That's
exactly. That's hence the expression "the dog in the manger," which is basically that the dog grabs something which he has no use of for himself, but because somebody else wants it, he feels that he has to keep it and prevent anyone else from having it. But on this note of dog psychology, we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology. And above all, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.